The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, floating in the air above Kate Morrison's desk like a glowing blue cube. She watched it spin slowly, casting strange shadows across the papers scattered around her workspace. The cube pulsed 3 times, then opened with a soft chime that reminded her of church bells. Kate had been Earth's top diplomat for 12 years, but she had never received a message quite like this one. The words appeared in perfect English, though she knew they had been translated from something far more alien. The Galactic Council was inviting humanity to their first diplomatic summit. "Colonel Sullivan," Kate called out, not taking her eyes off the floating text. "You need to see this." Jake Sullivan walked into her office, his military boots clicking against the metal floor. He was a big man with gray hair and tired eyes, the kind of person who had seen too much war and too little peace. When he saw the glowing message, he stopped walking and stared. "Is that what I think it is?" Jake asked. Kate nodded. "Read it yourself." The message was formal and cold, written in the style that politicians used when they wanted to sound important. It talked about peaceful relations and mutual understanding. It mentioned the great honor of being invited to join the galactic community. But buried in the middle of all those fancy words was a line that made Kate's jaw tighten. No weapons, no armor, no displays of aggression permitted. Jake read the message twice, then looked at Kate. "They think we're animals. They think we're dangerous animals," Kate corrected. "There's a difference." She stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the city of New Geneva stretched toward the horizon, all glass towers and flying cars. It looked peaceful enough, but Kate knew better. Humanity had spent the last 50 years preparing for this moment, ever since the first alien ship had appeared in Earth's sky. They had built weapons that could crack planets and shields that could stop stars. They had turned themselves into the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and now the Galactic Council wanted to meet them. "What's your read on this?" Jake asked. Kate turned back to the message, studying each word carefully. She had spent years learning about alien cultures, reading their histories, and understanding their fears. The Galactic Council was made up of 12 species, each one older and more advanced than humanity. They had been watching Earth for decades, waiting to see if humans could be trusted. "They're scared," Kate said finally. "Look at the language they use. They don't talk about trade agreements or military alliances. They talk about civilization and proper behavior. They want to see if we can sit at the grown-up table without starting a fight." Jake laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Have they met us?" "That's exactly the problem," Kate said. "They know our reputation. They know we've been fighting wars since we could hold sticks. They know we've turned violence into an art form. So they invite us to a peaceful meeting and tell us to leave our teeth at home." The message continued spinning above her desk, patient and eternal. Kate read it again, paying attention to the details. The summit would be held on Nexus Prime, a neutral space station that belonged to no single species. The most important representatives from across the galaxy would be there. It was humanity's chance to prove they belonged in galactic society, or their chance to prove they didn't. "What are you thinking?" Jake asked. He knew Kate well enough to recognize the look in her eyes. Kate smiled, and Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He had seen that smile before, usually right before she did something that made their enemies very unhappy. "I'm thinking about the word armor," Kate said. "They say no armor allowed, but they don't define what armor means." "Kate, think about it, Jake. When these aliens look at armor, what do they see? They see protection. They see defense. They see something that keeps you safe from danger. She paused, still smiling. But what if you don't need protection because you are the danger? Jake was quiet for a long moment. Outside the window, a passenger ship lifted off from the spaceport, its engines glowing blue against the afternoon sky. Somewhere out there, 12 alien species were preparing to judge humanity. They would come wearing their finest clothes and their most peaceful expressions. They would speak in careful words about civilization and proper behavior. They had no idea what was coming. "You have a plan," Jake said. It wasn't a question. "I have the beginning of a plan," Kate corrected. "But I'm going to need help. Get me Dr. Lisa Park from the Xenobiology Department and Master Sergeant Danny Cooper from Special Forces." "What are you going to tell them?" Kate looked at the message one more time, then waved her hand to make it disappear. The blue light faded, leaving her office dim and quiet. "I'm going to tell them that humanity has been invited to a very important party," she said, "and I'm going to ask them to help me pick out the perfect dress." Jake stared at her for a moment, then shook his head. "Sometimes I think you're completely insane." "Sometimes you're right," Kate said. "But that's what makes me good at this job." After Jake left, Kate sat alone in her office and thought about the message. The Galactic Council wanted to see if humanity could be civilized. They wanted to see if humans could follow rules and behave properly. They thought they were testing humanity's ability to fit in. They were wrong. This wasn't a test of humanity's ability to be civilized. This was humanity's chance to show the galaxy exactly what civilization looked like when it had teeth. Kate opened her desk drawer and pulled out a thick folder marked Classified. Inside were reports from dozens of worlds, stories of creatures that had made entire species flee in terror. She had been collecting these reports for years, waiting for the right moment to use them. That moment had finally come. She picked up her phone and started making calls. There was a lot of work to do, and not much time to do it. The Galactic Council was expecting a peaceful meeting with Earth's diplomatic representative. They were going to get exactly what they asked for, just not in the way they expected. Dr. Lisa Park arrived at Kate's office the next morning, carrying a steaming cup of coffee and a confused expression. She was a small woman with wild brown hair and paint stains on her lab coat, the kind of scientist who forgot to eat when she was working on something interesting. "You wanted to see me about predators?" Lisa asked, settling into the chair across from Kate's desk. "Specific predators," Kate said. She opened the classified folder and spread several photographs across the desk. "Tell me about these." Lisa leaned forward and studied the images. Her confusion quickly turned to recognition, then to something that looked like fear. "Where did you get these?" she asked. "Various sources, military reports, exploration surveys, colony incident files." Kate pointed to the first photograph. "Start with this one." The image showed a creature that looked like a cross between a wolf and a nightmare. It was black as space, with teeth like broken glass and eyes that seemed to glow even in the photograph. Lisa picked up the picture and turned it over, reading the notes on the back. "Shadowclaw Ripper," she said quietly. "Native to the dark side of Kepler 442b. They hunt in packs and can phase partially out of normal space. The Veltar had 3 colonies on that world before these things showed up." "Had?" Kate asked. "The colonies are empty now. The Veltar evacuated everyone and declared the entire system off limits." Lisa set the photograph down carefully, as if it might bite her. "These creatures killed 12,000 colonists in 6 months. The Veltar military couldn't stop them, even with their advanced weapons." Kate nodded and pointed to the next image. This one showed something that looked like a spider made of shadows and hunger. Its legs were longer than a man was tall, and its mouth was full of needles. "Void Stalker," Lisa said before Kate could ask. "They live in the space between stars, feeding on dark matter. When they get hungry enough, they attack ships and space stations. The Zephyrian trade fleet lost 18 vessels to these things last year before they figured out how to avoid them." "How do you avoid them?" "You don't travel alone, you don't travel at night, and you pray a lot." Lisa's voice was getting quieter with each photograph. "Kate, why are you showing me these? Please tell me Earth isn't planning to colonize any of these worlds." Kate smiled and picked up the third photograph. This one showed a creature that was mostly teeth and attitude, built like a tiger, but the size of a small building. "Grimwolf," Lisa said, recognizing it immediately. "They're from the ice world in the Arcturus system. The Krex tried to establish a mining operation there 5 years ago." "Tried?" "The Grimwolves ate the mining equipment, along with most of the miners." Lisa shuddered. "The Krex are warrior species, Kate. They've been fighting wars for 10,000 years. These animals made them run away crying." Kate gathered the photographs and put them back in the folder. "What would you say if I told you that humans hunt these creatures for sport?" Lisa stared at her for a long moment. "I would say you're completely insane. But we do, don't we? Rich humans pay millions of credits to hunt Shadowclaw Rippers on Kepler 442b. Adventure tourists take guided expeditions to track void stalkers in deep space. There are hunting lodges on the ice world where people go to bag grim wolves. A few crazy people with too much money and not enough sense," Lisa protested. "That doesn't mean humanity as a species hunts these things." "No," Kate agreed. "But it means we can." Before Lisa could respond, there was a knock on the office door. Master Sergeant Danny Cooper walked in, and the room suddenly felt smaller. Danny was built like a tank and moved like a cat. The kind of soldier who could kill you with a spoon if he was feeling creative. "Ma'am," Danny said, nodding to Kate. He glanced at Lisa and smiled politely. "Doctor." "Danny, I need your expertise on something," Kate said. "Sit down." Danny sat, and Kate opened the folder again. She spread the photographs across the desk, watching his reaction carefully. Danny looked at each image without expression, as if he was studying pictures of house cats instead of galaxy-class predators. "Nice collection," he said finally. "You want to know how to kill them?" "I want to know how to hunt them," Kate corrected. "More specifically, I want to know about the trophies." Danny's eyes lit up with understanding. "You're talking about psychological warfare." "I'm talking about making a statement." Danny picked up the photograph of the Shadowclaw Ripper and studied it carefully. "The teeth would be the prize trophy from one of these. They're made of a mineral compound that's harder than diamond. Hunters who take down a Shadowclaw usually have the teeth made into jewelry or decorative items." He moved to the next photograph. Voidstalker claws are popular too. They're naturally polished and they glow slightly in certain kinds of light. Very distinctive. "And the Grimwolf?" "The fangs. They're about 6 inches long and curved like sabers. Most people who hunt Grimwolves keep the fangs as proof of the kill." Danny set the photographs down and looked at Kate. "You're planning something. That's going to make a lot of people very uncomfortable, aren't you?" "That's the idea," Kate said. Lisa had been listening to this conversation with growing horror. "You can't be serious. You're talking about wearing parts of dead animals to a diplomatic meeting." "I'm talking about wearing proof that humanity doesn't need armor because we are what other species need armor to protect against," Kate corrected. The Galactic Council wants to see if we can be civilized. I'm going to show them exactly how civilized we are. By wearing a necklace made of monster teeth? By wearing a dress made of monster teeth. The room was quiet for a long moment. Outside, the city hummed with afternoon traffic, but inside Kate's office, 3 people sat in silence and considered the implications of what she was proposing. It could work, Danny said finally. From a psychological standpoint, it's brilliant. You show up to a peace conference wearing trophies from creatures that have terrorized entire civilizations. You don't say a word about violence or threats. You just sit there and let them draw their own conclusions. It could also start a war, Lisa pointed out. No, Kate said. It could prevent one. Right now, the Galactic Council sees humanity as a potential threat that needs to be controlled. They want to put us in a box and tell us how to behave. If we show up looking weak and apologetic, they'll spend the next century trying to manage us. And if we show up looking dangerous, then they'll spend the next century trying to stay on our good side. Lisa shook her head. This is insane. This is diplomacy, Kate corrected. Danny, how long would it take to acquire the materials I need? Danny thought for a moment. There are several hunting lodges that cater to the extreme sports crowd. They probably have what you're looking for in stock. I could have everything you need within a week. And the construction? There's a tailor in the fashion district who specializes in exotic materials. She's done work for diplomats before, and she's very discreet. Kate nodded. Make it happen. Danny stood up and headed for the door. This is either going to be the most successful diplomatic mission in human history or the shortest one. Probably both, Kate said. After he left, Lisa remained in her chair, staring at the closed folder on Kate's desk. You realize that every species represented at that summit has lost people to these creatures, she said quietly. I'm counting on it, Kate replied. They're going to hate you. No, Kate said, smiling that dangerous smile again. They're going to fear me, and fear is much more useful than hate. The first alien ship arrived at Nexus Prime on a Monday, sliding through space like a crystal cathedral. The Veltar transport was beautiful in the way that diamonds are beautiful, all sharp edges and perfect geometry. It docked at the station's primary port with mathematical precision, its hull gleaming under the artificial lights. Security Chief Alan Rodriguez watched the docking procedure from his command center, surrounded by monitors showing every angle of the station. Nexus Prime was humanity's first major diplomatic posting in alien space, and Alan had spent months preparing for this moment. The station was neutral territory, belonging to no single species, which made it the perfect place for important meetings. Veltar. Delegation is aboard, reported Lieutenant Kim Hayes from the communications desk. 12 representatives plus their security detail. Any weapons? Alan asked. Their security scans show ceremonial items only, crystal formations that serve as status symbols rather than weapons. They're following the no weapons protocol. Alan nodded and made a note in his log. The Veltar were known for their advanced technology and their obsession with perfection. Their society was built around mathematical principles and geometric harmony. They saw the universe as a puzzle to be solved through logic and order. The second ship arrived 3 hours later. This one looked like it had been grown rather than built, all organic curves and flowing lines. The Zephyrian vessel moved through space like a bird swimming through air, graceful and seemingly alive. Zephyrian delegation coming aboard, Kim reported. 8 representatives. They're wearing what looks like formal robes made from their homeworld silk. Weapons? None detected. They seemed to be following the protocol as well. Alan watched the Zephyrians disembark through the security cameras. They were tall and elegant, with pale blue skin and large eyes that seemed to see everything at once. Their robes flowed around them like water, shifting colors in the station's light. The Zephyrians were traders and explorers, known for their merchant fleets and their extensive knowledge of galactic politics. The third ship arrived like a bullet, fast and aggressive. The Krex warship was all angles and armor, painted in the dark red color that marked their military vessels. It docked with barely controlled violence, the hull clanging against the station's port with enough force to shake the entire structure. Krex delegation aboard, Kim said, and Alan could hear the tension in her voice. 6 representatives plus what looks like a full military escort. I thought this was supposed to be a peaceful meeting, Alan muttered. The Krex don't really do peaceful, Kim replied. But their weapons scans show only ceremonial items, battle dress and rank insignia, but no actual weapons. Alan studied the monitors as the Krex warriors marched through the station's corridors. They were large and intimidating, with gray skin and too many arms. Their ceremonial battle dress was covered in spikes and sharp edges, designed to look dangerous even when it wasn't functional. The Krex had been fighting wars across the galaxy for thousands of years, and they had never learned to walk anywhere quietly. Over the next 2 days, 9 more ships arrived. Each one brought representatives from a different alien species, each one following the strict no-weapons protocol that had been established for the summit. The station filled with beings that Kate had only read about in intelligence reports. There were the Thornlings, plant-based life forms that communicated through chemical signals and spent most of their time arguing about proper soil composition. The Nexari brought their floating meditation spheres and their endless philosophical debates. The Quillans arrived wearing traditional metal mesh garments that chimed like bells when they walked. Each species brought their own customs and their own fears. They set up their quarters according to ancient traditions, hung their banners in the diplomatic halls, and began the careful process of figuring out who would sit where and who would speak first. But everyone was waiting for the humans. "Any word from the human delegation?" Chancellor Vorseth asked during the first day's preliminary meetings. The Veltar leader was a tall crystal formation that spoke in perfect mathematical harmonies, each word calculated for maximum precision. "Their Diof ship arrived this morning," reported War Speaker Thulgax, the Krex military representative. His voice sounded like grinding metal, and his 4 arms gestured aggressively as he spoke. "But they have not emerged from their quarters." "Perhaps they are preparing," suggested Ambassador Silvana of the Zephyrians. Her voice was soft and musical, like wind through leaves. "Humans are known to be thorough in their preparations." "Humans are known to be violent and unpredictable," Thulgax corrected. "They have been fighting wars since they discovered fire. Their entire history is one long record of violence and conquest." "Which is exactly why this meeting is important," Vorseth said. "We must determine if they can be trusted to participate in galactic civilization or if they represent a threat that must be contained." Alan listened to these conversations through the station's communication systems, filing reports that would be sent back to Earth. The aliens were nervous about humanity's participation in the summit. They had been watching Earth for decades, studying human culture and history. What they had found did not reassure them. Humans had fought wars on every continent of their homeworld. They had turned weapons development into a science and warfare into an art form. They had conquered every environment on their planet, from the deepest oceans to the highest mountains. and when they had finally reached space, they had brought their aggressive nature with them. "Have you seen the human representative?" asked Dr. Velmar of the Thornlings, his voice rustling like dry leaves. "There are rumors about their appearance." "What kind of rumors?" Sylvana asked. "Strange requests to the station's fabrication. Systems. Orders for exotic materials. The humans have been very secretive about their preparations. They are probably planning some kind of display," Thulgax growled. "Humans love to show off their strength." "The protocol clearly states no displays of aggression," Vorseth reminded him. "If they violate the agreement, we will have our answer about their suitability for galactic society." But Alan knew something the aliens didn't. He had been monitoring the human quarters, and he had seen the materials that Danny Cooper had brought aboard. He had watched the construction process through security cameras, and he had a pretty good idea of what Kate Morrison was planning. "Lieutenant Hayes," he called out, "send a message to Earth Command. Tell them the summit is proceeding as planned, but they might want to prepare for some interesting reactions from our alien friends." "What kind of reactions, sir?" Alan looked. At the security feed from the human quarters, where Kate Morrison was putting the finishing touches on her diplomatic outfit. In a few hours, she would enter the main council chamber and take her place among the representatives of 12 alien species. They had no idea what they were about to see. "The kind that start wars or prevent them," Alan said quietly. "And right now, I'm not sure which one we're going to get." The station hummed around them, filled with aliens who thought they understood humanity. They had studied human history and human culture. They had read reports about human violence and human aggression. They thought they were prepared for anything humans might do. They were wrong. In her quarters, Kate Morrison stood before a mirror and smiled. Tomorrow, the real diplomacy would begin. The Grand Council chamber of Nexus Prime was designed to impress. The circular room stretched upward like the inside of a cathedral, with curved walls that seemed to disappear into shadows high above. 12 seating areas were arranged around. The central speaking platform, each one designed to accommodate a different alien physiology. Chancellor Vorseth of the Veltar took his position at the head of the chamber, his crystalline form catching the light and throwing rainbow patterns across the walls. As the eldest member of the Galactic Council, he would lead the proceedings and set the tone for humanity's first diplomatic contact. "We gather today to welcome a new species into our community," Vorseth announced, his voice resonating through the chamber like a perfectly tuned bell. "For too long, humanity has remained isolated on the edge of civilized space. Today, we extend our hand in friendship and cooperation." War Speaker Thulgax shifted in his seating area, his forearms folding across his chest in a gesture that looked anything but friendly. The Krex military leader had opposed this meeting from the beginning, arguing that humans were too violent and unpredictable to be trusted with galactic technology. "Friendship must be earned," Thulgax growled, his voice carrying the sound of metal on stone. "We have all heard the stories of human aggression. Their homeworld bears the scars of countless wars. They fight each other over resources, territory, and ideology. What guarantee do we have that they will not bring this violence to our peaceful civilizations?" Ambassador Sylvana of the Zephyrians raised one elegant hand. "Perhaps we should allow them to speak for themselves before we judge them," she suggested. "After all, many species have violent histories. The Krex themselves were once known for their aggressive expansion across the outer rim." Thulgax's eyes flashed with anger. "The Krex learned to channel our warrior nature into protecting the weak and maintaining order. We serve the galaxy's security. Humans serve only themselves. Based on what evidence? Asked Dr. Velmar of the Thornlings. His plant-like form rustled with agitation. We have observed them from a distance, but we have never actually spoken with them. How can we judge a species we do not know? The debate continued for several minutes, with each species voicing their concerns and opinions about humanity. Some were curious, others were fearful, and a few were openly hostile. But all of them were waiting for the same thing, their first look at humanity's diplomatic representative. The human delegation has requested permission to enter the chamber, announced the station's artificial intelligence system. The voice was calm and neutral, but it seemed to cut through the arguing like a blade. Vorseth straightened, his crystal form glowing brighter with anticipation. Permission granted. Let us see what humanity has to offer. The main entrance to the chamber was sealed by a heavy door that split down the middle when it opened. As the two halves slid apart, every eye in the room turned toward the opening. The aliens had spent weeks preparing for this moment, studying human culture and trying to predict what their representative would look like. They expected formal diplomatic clothing, perhaps a military uniform or traditional Earth garments. They expected someone who would try to look peaceful and non-threatening, following the established protocols for first contact situations. They expected humanity to try to fit in. They were not prepared for what actually walked through that door. Kate Morrison entered the chamber with the measured pace of a predator who owned the territory she walked through. She wore black, but not the black of formal diplomatic attire. This was the black of deep space, of the void between stars, of the darkness that exists before creation begins. Her dress was elegant in the way that death is elegant, perfectly tailored and absolutely uncompromising. But it was not made of silk or synthetic materials. Every inch of the garment was constructed from the teeth of creatures that had terrorized civilizations across the galaxy. Shadowclaw Ripper teeth formed the bodice, each one no larger than a fingernail but sharp enough to cut through starship hull plating. They caught the chamber's lights and threw them back like stars, creating a constellation of gleaming death that shifted with every breath Kate took. The skirt was made from larger teeth, probably taken from mature rippers who had lived long enough to grow to full size. These were arranged in overlapping patterns that flowed like deadly water around Kate's legs. When she moved, the teeth whispered against each other with a sound like wind through a graveyard. But the dress was not the only statement Kate was making. Around her neck hung a necklace of void stalker claws, each one perfectly polished and glowing with its own inner light. The claws were arranged by size, starting with small ones at the back of her neck and growing larger as they approached the front. The largest claw rested just above her heart, pulsing with a soft blue radiance that matched the rhythm of her breathing. Her earrings were made from smaller shadowclaw teeth, suspended on nearly invisible wires so that they moved with every step she took. Her bracelet was crafted from Grimwolf fangs, the curved ivory gleaming like captured moonlight. Even her hair accessories were part of the statement. Thin pins made from void stalker bone held her dark hair in a simple but elegant style, while a single Grimwolf fang served as a hair clip, its 6-inch length catching the light like a blade. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Kate walked to the human seating area with perfect composure, her heels clicking against the metal floor in a steady rhythm that sounded like a countdown timer. She did not look around at the alien representatives watching her. She did not acknowledge their stares or their obvious shock. She simply took her place at the human delegation table and waited. War Speaker Thulgax was the first to find his voice, and when he spoke, it came out as barely more than a whisper. "Shadowclaw Rippers," he said, his forearms trembling slightly. "Those are Shadowclaw Ripper teeth." Ambassador Sylvana leaned forward in her seat, her large eyes wide with recognition. "And Void Stalker claws. I can see them glowing." Dr. Velmar's plant-like form had gone completely still, as if he was trying to avoid drawing attention to himself. "Grimwolf fangs," he rustled quietly. "Those are definitely Grimwolf fangs." Chancellor Vorseth's crystalline structure had dimmed considerably, his usual bright glow reduced to a barely visible flicker. He stared at Kate's dress as if he was looking at a weapon pointed directly at his core. "These creatures," he said slowly, his voice having lost all of its earlier confidence, "these creatures have terrorized our worlds for generations. The Shadowclaw Rippers destroyed 3 Veltar colonies. The Voidstalkers wiped out 18. Of our trade ships, the Grimwolves forced the entire Krex military to abandon the Arcturus mining operation." Kate finally looked up from her notes, meeting Vorseth's gaze with calm, steady eyes. "I know," she said simply. The chamber fell silent again. Every representative in the room was staring at the human who sat before them, wearing the remains of their nightmares like jewelry. They had come to this meeting expecting to judge humanity's fitness for galactic civilization. Instead, they were beginning to understand that they were the ones being judged. The silence stretched on like a held breath. Kate Morrison sat in her chair with perfect posture, her hands folded in her lap, waiting for someone to speak. The predator teeth that made up her dress caught the chamber's lights and threw them back in patterns that seemed to shift and move with each heartbeat. Around the circular chamber, 12 alien species tried to process what they were seeing. These were beings who had mastered faster-than-light travel, who had built civilizations spanning multiple star systems, who considered themselves the pinnacle of galactic evolution. And all of them were staring at a single human woman wearing their deepest fears like fashion accessories. Chancellor Vorseth was the first to regain his composure, though his crystalline form continued to flicker with uncertain light. As the senior member of the council, it was his responsibility to maintain diplomatic protocol, even when that protocol had just been turned upside down and shaken until all the safe assumptions fell out. "Ambassador Morrison," he said, his voice carefully controlled. "We welcome you to the Galactic Council. Your attire is quite striking." Kate inclined her head politely. "Thank you, Chancellor. I wanted to make sure I dressed appropriately for such an important occasion." "Appropriately," repeated War Speaker Thulgax, and there was something like awe in his gravelly voice. "You call wearing the remains of galactic apex predators appropriate diplomatic attire?" "The invitation specified no armor," Kate replied, calmly. "I am not wearing any armor." "You are wearing death." Thulgax's forearms gestured wildly at Kate's dress. "Those teeth belong to creatures that have killed thousands of our people." "Yes," Kate agreed. "They do." The simple acknowledgement hit the chamber like a physical blow. There was no apology in Kate's voice, no attempt to soften the impact of what she was wearing. She stated the fact as plainly as if she had commented on the weather. Ambassador Sylvana of the Zephyrians leaned forward, her musical voice strained with tension. Where did you acquire these materials?" "From hunters," Kate said. human hunters who travel to various worlds throughout the galaxy in search of challenging prey. It's quite a popular activity among our more adventurous citizens. Popular, Dr. Velmar whispered, his plant-like form rustling with agitation. You hunt these creatures for sport. Some humans do, yes. Others hunt them for profit. The teeth and claws fetch quite high prices in certain markets. And some hunt them for practical reasons. Shadow Claw Rippers have been known to attack human colonies, so we occasionally need to clear them out for safety purposes. Kate delivered this information in the same tone she might use to discuss trade, agreements, or immigration policies. Matter of fact, professional, completely unconcerned about the growing horror in the faces around her. The Grimwolves, Chancellor Vorseth said slowly, forced an entire Krex battle fleet to retreat from the Arcturus system. Our reports indicate that conventional weapons were ineffective against them. Conventional weapons, yes, Kate agreed. Human hunters use specialized equipment. Plasma rifles designed for extreme cold weather conditions, armor that can withstand temperatures down to -200 degrees, tracking systems that can follow prey through ice storms. It's quite an involved process. And the Void Stalkers? Sylvana asked, though she looked like she was afraid to hear the answer. Deep space hunting, Kate explained. Very exclusive. Only the most experienced hunters attempt it. You need a specially modified ship with enhanced shields and long-range sensors. The hunters track the stalkers through dark matter trails, then engage them in open space. Very dangerous, but the trophy value is exceptional. War Speaker Thulgax had gone completely still, his warrior's mind processing the implications of what he was hearing. You hunt them in open space, without planetary support, without military backup. Individual hunters, yes. Sometimes small. Groups. The largest hunting party I'm aware of consisted of 6 ships. 6 ships, Thulgax repeated numbly. We lost 18 trade vessels to a single Void Stalker pack. Trade ships aren't designed for combat, Kate pointed out reasonably. Hunter vessels are built specifically to engage dangerous prey, different tools for different purposes. Chancellor Vorseth's glow had dimmed to almost nothing. Ambassador Morrison, are you saying that individual humans regularly hunt creatures that have forced entire civilizations to abandon star systems? Not regularly, Kate corrected. These hunts are expensive and dangerous. Only a small percentage of humans participate in extreme predator hunting. Most prefer safer activities. Safer activities, Dr. Velmar rustled. Such as standard big game hunting on terrestrial worlds, deep-sea fishing for leviathans, mountain climbing on high-gravity planets, cave exploration in unstable geological systems, the usual recreational pursuits. The aliens exchanged glances around the chamber. What Kate was describing as usual recreational pursuits sounded like suicide missions to most galactic species. The idea that humans did these things for fun was almost incomprehensible. You seem surprised, Kate observed, noting their expressions. Is this not normal behavior for spacefaring species? No, Vorseth said weakly. No, it is not. Interesting. What do your people do for recreation? We study mathematics, Vorseth replied automatically. We contemplate geometric perfection and the harmony of crystalline structures. Kate nodded politely. That sounds very peaceful. What about the Zephyrians? She asked, turning to Ambassador Sylvana. We practice meditation and compose poetry about the beauty of interstellar travel, Sylvana replied, her voice barely above a whisper. And the Krex? War Speaker Thulgax seemed to realize that his people's reputation as galactic warriors was about to be put in perspective. We engage in ritualized combat sports, carefully controlled contests with proper safety protocols. Ah, Kate said, and somehow managed to pack a universe of understanding into that single syllable. She reached up and touched the Void Stalker claw necklace at her throat, and every alien in the chamber flinched. I should mention that this particular set comes with quite an interesting story. The hunter who acquired these claws tracked a mature stalker through the Veil Nebula for 3 weeks. When he finally cornered it near a dead star, the creature had already consumed 2 Zephyrian research vessels that had wandered into its territory. Sylvana made a sound that might have been a sob. The hunter recovered the research data from the stalker's body after the kill, Kate continued conversationally. I believe it contained several years' worth of scientific observations about dark matter interactions. He returned it to the Zephyrian authorities, of course. Humans believe in proper salvage protocols. The chamber had gone so quiet that the only sound was the gentle hum of the station's life support systems. Kate sat in her chair of gleaming death, perfectly composed and utterly at ease, while around her the most powerful beings in the galaxy tried to come to terms with what they had just learned. They had invited humanity to this summit to determine if humans could be trusted with galactic civilization. Instead, they were beginning to wonder if galactic civilization could be trusted with humanity. Kate Morrison looked around the chamber at the faces staring back at her, taking note of each species' reaction to her revelations. The Veltar Chancellor had dimmed to barely a flicker. The Zephyrian ambassador looked like she was about to faint. War Speaker Thulgax, for all his bluster about Krek's military might, had gone completely silent. I hope I haven't been presumptuous, Kate said, breaking the silence with perfect diplomatic courtesy. When the invitation mentioned that no armor would be allowed, I assumed it was because this was intended to be a peaceful gathering of civilized beings. I thought it would be appropriate to wear something that demonstrated humanity's appreciation for the finer things in life. She gestured gracefully at her dress, and the motion sent ripples of light across the Shadow Claw Ripper teeth. These represent some of the finest craftsmanship in human fashion. Each tooth has been individually polished and set by master artisans. The construction took over 2 weeks to complete. 2 weeks, Chancellor Vorseth repeated faintly. Yes. Finding the right materials was the challenging part, of course. Not every hunter keeps their trophies in good enough condition for formal wear. But there are specialty dealers who cater to the luxury market. Dr. Velmar's rustling had taken on a distinctly distressed quality. You have dealers in predator remains for fashion purposes. Among other things, Kate confirmed. There's quite a market for exotic materials among Earth's upper classes. Shadowclaw teeth are particularly popular for jewelry, though full garments are rare due to the cost. Void Stalker claws are often used in decorative art pieces, and Grimwolf fangs are frequently incorporated into ceremonial weapons. Ceremonial weapons, War Speaker Thulgax said slowly, made from the fangs of creatures that forced my people to abandon an entire star system. Well, not just ceremonial, Kate admitted. Some humans prefer functional weapons with decorative elements. There's a certain satisfaction in using a blade made from the remains of something that once tried to kill you. The aliens were learning entirely too much about human psychology for their comfort. Each revelation opened new avenues of horror that they had never considered. The idea that humans not only hunted galactic apex predators, but then turned their remains into fashion accessories and weapons was beyond their comprehension. Ambassador Morrison, Chancellor Vorseth said carefully, when your people hunt these creatures, How many hunters typically participate in each expedition? Kate considered the question. It depends on the target and the hunting method. For grimwolves, most hunters prefer to work alone or in pairs. It's considered more sporting that way. Void stalker hunting usually involves a single ship with a crew of 3 to 5 people. Shadowclaw Ripper hunting can be done solo, but most hunters bring a partner for safety reasons. Safety reasons, Ambassador Sylvana repeated weakly. Rippers hunt in packs, Kate explained. If you're tracking one, there are usually others nearby. It's easy to get surrounded if you're not careful. A hunting partner can watch your back while you line up your shot. And how successful are these hunts? Dr. Velmar asked, though he looked like he was afraid to hear the answer. The success rate varies depending on the hunter's experience and the difficulty of the target. Novice hunters might have a 50% success rate with smaller prey. Expert hunters can achieve success rates above 90%, even with apex predators. 90%, Thulgak said numbly. For the really experienced hunters, yes. There are humans who have taken down dozens of Shadowclaw Rippers, multiple Void Stalkers, and entire packs of Grimwolves. Some of the most successful hunters have their own trophy rooms that would put natural history museums to shame. Kate paused, then added with a slight smile, There's actually quite a competitive aspect to it. Hunters keep detailed records of their kills, and there are annual awards for various categories. Largest prey, most dangerous hunt, most exotic location, that sort of thing. You give awards, Chancellor Vorseth said, for killing the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. Among other things, yes. There are also awards for conservation efforts, hunting safety, and educational outreach. The hunting community takes its responsibilities very seriously. Responsibilities, Dr. Velmar rustled. Of course. Sustainable hunting practices, environmental protection, proper treatment of non-target species. Many hunters are also involved in scientific research, collecting data about predator behavior and ecosystem dynamics. The information they gather has been quite valuable for xenobiology studies. Kate reached into a small bag beside her chair and withdrew a datapad. In fact, I have some recent reports here that might interest the Council. Human hunters have discovered several previously unknown species in the last year alone. There was a fascinating variant of the Shadowclaw Ripper found in the Kepler system, and what appears to be a juvenile form of Void Stalker that exhibits completely different behavioral patterns. She offered the datapad to Chancellor Vorseth, who stared at it as if it might explode. These reports include detailed behavioral observations, genetic samples, and environmental data, Kate continued, all collected by civilian hunters during their recreational expeditions. I thought the Council might find them useful for their ongoing xenobiology research projects. You want to give us scientific data? Sylvana said slowly. Collected by people who hunt our nightmares for sport. Why not? The data is quite comprehensive, and it was gathered at no cost to any government or research institution. Human hunters are usually happy to share their findings with the scientific community. War Speaker. Thulgax finally found his voice again. Ambassador Morrison, do you understand what you are telling us? You are describing a human population that treats galaxy-class predators as recreational targets. Creatures that have terrorized civilizations for millennia are considered casual entertainment by your species. Kate tilted her head thoughtfully. I suppose it might seem unusual to species who haven't encountered such predators on their homeworlds. Earth has always been a dangerous place. We evolved alongside creatures that could kill us in dozens of different ways. Learning to hunt dangerous prey is part of human culture going back hundreds of thousands of years. But these are not Earth predators. Vorseth pointed out. These are alien species from distant worlds. True, but the principles are the same. Dangerous prey is dangerous prey, regardless of what planet it comes from. If anything, hunting alien predators is easier than hunting Earth predators because we've had millions of years to adapt to the creatures on our homeworld. Easier, Dr. Velmar whispered. Oh, yes. Earth predators know how humans think, how we move, how we hunt. They've evolved countermeasures to human hunting techniques. Alien predators haven't had that evolutionary pressure. They're often surprised by human tactics. Kate gestured at her necklace of void stalker claws. These creatures, for example, are ambush predators that rely on stealth and surprise, but they've never encountered prey that actively hunts them back. Once you understand their behavioral patterns, they become much more manageable. The chamber fell silent again. Around the room, the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy were coming to terms with a fundamental shift in their understanding of the universe. They had thought they knew where humanity fit in the galactic hierarchy. They had thought they understood the balance of power among spacefaring species. They had been wrong about everything. Kate Morrison sat in her chair wearing the remains of their worst nightmares, speaking about galactic apex predators as if they were nothing more than interesting hunting challenges, and the truly terrifying part was that she seemed completely sincere. This wasn't a threat or a boast. This was simply a human explaining normal human behavior to aliens who were finally beginning to understand what they had invited to their peaceful diplomatic summit. Captain Steve Blake had been standing quietly in the corner of the chamber, observing the reactions of the alien delegates as Kate delivered her explanations about human hunting culture. As her military attaché, his job was to provide additional context when needed, and he could see that the moment for context had arrived. "If I may," Steve said, stepping forward from his position near the wall. His voice was calm and professional, the tone of someone who briefed senior officers on classified operations. Kate nodded to him. "Captain Blake, please feel free to share your perspective." Steve moved to stand beside Kate's chair, his hands clasped behind his back in a relaxed military posture. He looked around the chamber at the assembled alien representatives, noting their expressions of shock and growing concern. "I think there may be some confusion about the scale of human hunting activities," Steve said. "Ambassador Morrison has been describing recreational hunting, which represents a very small percentage of human interaction with these predator species." Chancellor Vorseth's crystal form flickered with what might have been hope. "You mean this is not representative of human behavior as a whole?" "Oh, it's representative," Steve clarified. "But recreational hunting is just one aspect of how humans deal with dangerous predators. There are also commercial operations, scientific expeditions, and of course, colony protection services." War Speaker Thulgax leaned forward. "Colony protection services?" "Certainly. When human colonies are established, near worlds that harbor dangerous predators, we typically deploy hunter teams to clear the immediate area. It's standard procedure for ensuring colonist safety." Steve paused and pulled out his own data pad. "For example, last year we established 17 new colonies in systems that contained various predator species. The site preparation teams eliminated approximately 230 Shadowclaw Rippers, 47 Grimwolf packs, and 6 Void Stalker nests before the colonists arrived." "You cleared entire star systems," Dr. Velmar rustled in disbelief. "Just the immediate colonial zones," Steve corrected. "We don't eliminate entire species unless they pose a direct threat to human settlements. Most predators are left alone, as long as they stay away from inhabited areas." Ambassador Silvana looked like she was having trouble breathing. How many of these clearing operations do you conduct each year? Steve consulted his data pad. In the last fiscal year, Human Colonial Services conducted clearing operations in 43 star systems. That resulted in the elimination of approximately 800 major predators and several thousand minor ones. 800, Chancellor Vorzeth repeated. Major predators, yes. The minor ones are usually handled by automated defense systems, things like pack hunters, ambush predators, aerial threats, standard colonial preparation work. Kate reached up and touched one of the Grimwolf fangs in her hair. Captain Blake, perhaps you could explain how these particular trophies were acquired. Certainly. Steve turned to address War Speaker Thulgax directly. These fangs came from the Arcturus system cleanup operation. When we established our mining colony there, we discovered why the Kreks had abandoned their operation. The local Grimwolf population had grown quite large in the absence of any controlling predator. Thulgax's forearms began to tremble slightly. The cleanup operation. Standard procedure. We deployed a hunter team of 12 specialists with appropriate cold weather gear. The operation took 6 days to complete. All major Grimwolf packs in the colonial zone were eliminated, and the area was declared safe for human habitation. 6 days, Thulgax whispered. It took you 6 days to clear creatures that forced an entire Kreks battle fleet to retreat. Well, we had the right equipment, Steve said reasonably, and Grimwolves are actually quite predictable once you understand their pack dynamics. The key is disrupting their communication patterns and forcing them to hunt individually rather than as a coordinated group. Dr. Velmar made a sound that might have been a whimper. You have tactical manuals for fighting these creatures. Of course. Standard doctrine for colonial protection forces. Would you like me to share some of the basic tactical guidelines? No. Several aliens said at once. Steve shrugged. The information is available if you're interested. Human Colonial Services publishes detailed guides for dealing with various predator species. It's all part of our commitment to safe colonial expansion. Kate stood up from her chair, and the movement sent ripples of light across her dress of predator teeth. I think Captain Blake has illustrated an important point. What your species see as insurmountable threats, humans see as routine obstacles to be managed. She walked to the center of the chamber, her heels clicking against the metal floor in that same steady rhythm. Every step brought the reality of what she represented into sharper focus. You've been debating whether humanity is ready to join galactic civilization, Kate continued. But I think you're asking the wrong question. The question isn't whether we're ready to join your civilization. The question is whether your civilization is ready for us. Chancellor Vorseth's glow had stabilized, but at a much dimmer level than before. What do you mean? Kate gestured around the chamber. Look at yourselves. You're terrified of creatures that humans hunt for recreation. You abandon star systems rather than fight predators that we clear out as routine colonial preparation. You've built your entire galactic civilization around avoiding the things that we actively seek out. We are not cowards, War Speaker Thulgax growled, but his voice lacked its earlier conviction. I didn't say you were cowards, Kate replied calmly. I said you were afraid. There's a difference. Fear is a rational response to danger. But the problem is that you've let your fear limit your expansion, your exploration, and your development. She stopped walking and faced the assembled representatives directly. How many worlds have you written off because they contain dangerous predators? How many star systems have you abandoned because you couldn't guarantee complete safety? How many scientific discoveries have you missed because you were too afraid to investigate dangerous phenomena? The aliens exchanged glances around the chamber. Kate's questions were hitting uncomfortably close to the truth. The Galactic Council had indeed avoided entire regions of space because they contained known predator populations. Humanity doesn't avoid danger, Kate continued. We adapt to it, we study it, we overcome it, and when necessary, we eliminate it. That's not because we're violent or aggressive. It's because we refuse to let fear limit our potential. Ambassador. Sylvana found her voice. But surely there must be things that humans fear, creatures or phenomena that even your species avoids. Kate smiled, and it was the same dangerous smile that had made Jake Sullivan nervous back on Earth. Of course there are things we fear, she said. But when we encounter something that scares us, we don't run away from it. We study it, we prepare for it, and then we go back with better equipment and more knowledge. She reached into her bag and withdrew a small object, holding it up for the chamber to see. It was a single black scale, about the size of a dinner plate, that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. This came from something we call a void dragon, Kate said casually. We've only encountered 3 of them, all in the deep space beyond the galactic rim. They're approximately 2 kilometers long. They feed on dark matter, and they can phase in and out of normal space at will. The scales seemed to drink in the chamber's light, creating a sphere of darkness around Kate's hand. The first one we encountered destroyed 2 research vessels before we could retreat, Kate continued. The second one cost us a heavy cruiser and most of its crew, but the third one we killed. She set the scale on the central speaking platform, where it continued to create its field of absolute darkness. It took a specially designed fleet of hunter-killer ships, 3 years of preparation, and weapons that had never been tested in combat conditions. But we killed it. And now we're preparing to hunt the others. The chamber was so quiet that the sound of the station's air recycling system seemed thunderously loud. You see, Kate said, returning to her seat. That's the difference between humanity and the rest of galactic civilization. When you encounter something that terrifies you, you run away and declare the area off-limits. When we encounter something that terrifies us, we figure out how to kill it. She settled back into her chair and smoothed her dress of predator teeth. Now then, shall we discuss the terms of humanity's participation in the Galactic Council? 3 hours later, the Grand Council chamber looked very different than it had at the beginning of the session. The alien representatives sat in their designated areas, but their postures had changed completely, where once they had carried themselves, with the confidence of superior civilizations passing judgment on a primitive species. Now they looked like students trying to understand a lesson that was far more complex than they had expected. Chancellor Vorseth had managed to restore some of his crystalline glow, but it was still noticeably dimmer than usual. He looked down at the documents spread across the central platform. Treaties and agreements that had been hastily rewritten during the lengthy negotiations. Let me ensure that I understand the terms correctly, Vorseth said carefully. Humanity agrees to join the Galactic Council as a full member species, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. Kate nodded from her position at the human delegation table. The void dragon scale still sat on the platform beside the treaties, its field of darkness serving as a constant reminder of what humanity was capable of achieving. In exchange, Vorseth continued, the Council agrees to several modifications to our existing security arrangements. War Speaker Thulgax shifted uncomfortably in his seating area. As the Council's primary military representative, he had found the last few hours particularly challenging. The Council agrees to hire human colonial services for predator clearing operations in contested systems. At standard commercial rates, Kate added. We're not looking for charity, just fair compensation for professional services. And the Council agrees to purchase predator location data from human hunting expeditions, Ambassador Sylvana said, her musical voice still somewhat strained. To help us identify and avoid dangerous systems before we attempt colonization. The data comes with detailed tactical assessments, Captain Steve Blake added from his position near the wall. Information about predator behavior, effective countermeasures, and recommended engagement protocols. Everything you need to make informed decisions about system development. Dr. Velmar rustled his plant-like form nervously. And humanity agrees to contain the Void Dragon population in the Deep Rim territories. We're already planning to hunt them anyway, Kate said with a slight shrug. Might as well make it official. The Council gets guaranteed protection from Void Dragon incursions, and humanity gets exclusive hunting rights in the Rim territories. Everyone benefits. Chancellor Vorseth studied the treaties one more time, though he had already read them several times during the negotiations. The agreement was unlike anything the Galactic Council had ever signed. Instead of welcoming a new species into their peaceful civilization, they found themselves hiring humanity as a combination security force and extermination service. There is one more matter, Vorseth said slowly. The Council has discussed the possibility of educational exchanges. Kate raised an eyebrow. What kind of educational exchanges? Human hunting techniques, War Speaker Thulgax admitted reluctantly. Some of our military leaders are interested in learning how your species deals with extreme predator threats. Cross-training programs, Ambassador Sylvana clarified. Human instructors teaching alien forces how to engage dangerous wildlife. In exchange, we could offer advanced technology transfers and scientific cooperation. Kate considered this for a moment. That could be arranged, though I should warn you that human hunting techniques tend to be quite direct. Your people might find our methods somewhat intense. More intense than facing Shadowclaw Rippers with conventional weapons? Thulgax asked. Different kind of intensity, Captain Blake said with a slight smile. Human training programs focus on aggression management, fear suppression, and tactical thinking under extreme stress. We tend to put trainees in situations where they have to make life or death decisions very quickly. How extreme? Dr. Velmar asked. Well, the basic predator hunting course starts with live Grimwolf encounters in controlled environments, Blake replied. Trainees are equipped with standard hunting gear and expected to successfully engage pack hunters in simulated colonial scenarios. The aliens exchanged glances around the chamber. What Blake was describing as basic training sounded like a suicide mission to most galactic species. Of course, we can modify the curriculum based on species-specific capabilities, Kate added diplomatically. Not every species is physiologically suited for direct predator engagement. We can focus on tactical coordination, support roles, and technology applications instead. Chancellor Vorseth nodded slowly. That would be appreciated. Kate stood up from her chair one final time, the predator teeth of her dress catching the light as she moved. Then I believe we have the foundation for a mutually beneficial relationship. She walked to the central platform and picked up the Void Dragon scale, holding it up so that every representative in the chamber could see it clearly. When this summit was announced, I think you expected humanity to beg for acceptance into your civilization, Kate said. You thought you would be teaching us how to behave in galactic society. You thought you would be setting the terms for our participation." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each alien representative in turn. "Instead, you've learned that humanity doesn't need to be taught how to survive in a dangerous galaxy. We've been doing it since before we left our homeworld. What you need is someone who can help you expand into the parts of the galaxy that you've been too afraid to explore." Kate placed the Void Dragon scale on top of the signed treaties, the darkness it generated spreading across the documents like ink. "The Council gets security services, predator clearing operations, and access to hunting data that will open up thousands of new systems for colonization. Humanity gets membership in galactic civilization and the resources to continue our expansion into the deep rim territories." She smiled that dangerous smile one more time. "Everyone gets what they need. The Council gets protection from the monsters in the dark, and humanity gets official permission to hunt them." Chancellor Vorseth activated the Chamber's recording system to make the treaties official. "The Galactic Council welcomes humanity as our newest member species. May this partnership bring prosperity and security to all our worlds." As the session ended and the alien representatives began to file out of the chamber, Kate Morrison remained seated at the human delegation table. Captain Blake approached and took the chair beside her. "Think they'll actually follow through on the treaties?" Blake asked quietly. Kate looked down at her dress of predator teeth, then at the Void Dragon scale sitting atop the signed documents. "Oh, they'll follow through," she said confidently. "They're terrified not to." She reached up and touched the necklace of Void Stalker claws at her throat, the largest one pulsing with its soft blue light. "Besides, once word spreads about what happened here today, we're going to have a lot more business than we can handle. Every species in the galaxy is going to want to hire the people who hunt void dragons for fun." Kate stood up and smoothed her dress one final time, then picked up the Void Dragon scale from the platform. The darkness around it seemed to follow her movements like a living shadow. "Come on, Captain. Let's go home and tell Earth that humanity just became the galaxy's official monster hunters." As they walked toward the chamber exit, Kate's heels clicked against the metal floor in that same steady rhythm. But now it sounded less like a countdown timer and more like a victory march. The Galactic Council had invited humanity to prove they could be civilized. Instead, humanity had proven that civilization sometimes needed teeth.